Welcome to Healing Our Relationships, the podcast. I'm Marisa, Insight Timer meditation teacher and transformation guide, and I've spent the last 18 years coming home to myself. Each week, journey with me as I guide you into deeper awareness, help you meet yourself with compassion, untangle painful relationship patterns, and heal the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. After the episode, head to healwithalchemy.com. Learn more about how to work with me one-on-one or in circle with other people who are walking this path. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you on the other side. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm very excited to be back in this container with you. I know it's been a few weeks since I've had a new episode for you, and that's because I've been working on a Healing Our Relationships workbook. So you have asked, you have messaged, you have emailed, you have let me know that you would really like to do this work deeper, really unearth your patterns and understand the origins and how to reorient and reframe and tools. And so I'm working on this beautiful workbook that goes through all the different patterns of codependency as a place for you to be in a place of compassionate inquiry and self-discovery. So I'm hoping to have that to you in the next couple months. So that's why I've been away. And today I was already planning on recording for you today. And then something unexpected happened last night that I'm going to use for my inspiration today instead. That's why I don't like to make a lot of plans ahead of time. I like to be inspired. So I received a message from a really good friend of mine. We've known each other since we were 4 years old. And she said, "Have you heard of Lily Allen's new album, West End Girl?" And I was like, no, I don't know who Lily Allen is. And I was a musician in another life. And so she's like, "I really think you'd be interested in this just because of the linear way that she shares this really powerful story of her and her ex-husband." She didn't give me any context. She was basically just like, listen to it, which I absolutely love when people don't give me context to things. And if I don't know someone, I don't know the story, I don't know the drama, I don't know the projections from the media, it's really great. But to tell you what the album is about, to orient you, is that Lily Allen is a musician, obviously, and I believe an actress as well, or was an actress. And she was married to a famous television star, one of the guys in Stranger Things. I don't even know his name. I could look it up. It doesn't feel like it's really that important or pertinent to the episode, so I invite you to look up all the juicy details on your own if you don't know them already. Essentially, she recorded a record that it feels like you're actually living inside of the middle of her relationship unraveling and her process inside of that unraveling. And it's very vulnerable, or what I would assume to be a vulnerable sharing of one's deepest truth. Now, it's art. I do not know Lily Allen, and this episode is absolutely not about analyzing her or her expression. It's not a pop-psych analysis of her life or what she really means. This is actually not about her at all. I wanted to use this record that a lot of people are listening to and probably resonating with as a mirror. Now, a mirror in the realm of expansive thought or spiritual practice, or how I use it in my own life, I will say, is that a mirror isn't about someone else revealing who they are. It's about what their experience or how they share their experience reveals inside of us. So it doesn't tell us the truth about another person. It actually just reflects our own inner world back to us. And this is the difference between projection, because what most people do, especially I imagine, I don't know, but here's this woman who's being very, what I would assume to be vulnerable and putting her truth out there in a really powerful way, saying things and on blast about somebody that everybody knows is very famous right now. And she's not withholding her lived experience, whatever that was for her. Now, when we project onto somebody, we take our own experience, typically unconsciously, and we start making a lot of assumptions about them, that there's going to be a bunch of podcast episodes and television shows and TikTokers that are projecting their own beliefs, their own experiences onto her and her album and trying to make a whole bunch of sense of it. When the truth is, that's like the worst way we could use someone's art and story. when they are going to share parts of their life with us, their experience, or whatever they needed their self-expression to be in the world. It's like the worst thing we can do is project and it would be like going into an art studio and somebody created this beautiful work of art, and then you just took your pen out and you started editing it and writing, just overlaying your experience onto it. It destroys that person's experience and self-expression. And that is a projection. And that's what I don't want to do in this episode. What I wanted to do was use it as a mirror. She inspired me to ask myself, what does this invoke in me creatively for this relationships container? What really stands out to me is something that I now want to take and say, thank you, Lily, for this inspiration. And this is so powerful and vulnerable, and people are listening to it. And how do I want to take it and find the medicine inside of that? And I will find the medicine that's not her medicine, but what she reflected to me, what I resonated with. And I always want to share with you all from a place of my own experience, strength, and hope. And I really resonated to a lot of things that she shared about. So today I wanted to just pull out like 3 different themes that I felt were really important that could be used to inspire this episode. So the first one, the suppression of our own truth, saying we're okay when we're not okay, going along when we really don't want to go along, putting someone else's needs in front of our own because it feels like the loving thing to do, or maybe because we're afraid we might lose them. Wanting love from someone, and then at the same time, resenting them and or ourselves while wanting and loving them. This painful, confusing process. And rumination, obsessive thoughts, overthinking, not sleeping to keep us safe. And those are the 3 patterns that I really wanted to dive into a little bit today to share a teaching on, some perspective, little reorientation, and then offer you a practice and inspiration. Because the main thing that her record mirrored for me in my own life, what it awakened in me, was the remembering that when I was so deeply driven for someone else's love, I completely lost my sense of self, that I became not good enough. I became unworthy. I was the problem. What was so wrong with me? Why was I not enough? That even when someone else's behavior was harmful or hurtful, or I'd been wronged, that I showed up and loved even more, gave even more. And I don't know if that is Lily's experience. Again, this isn't a projection, but when I was listening, it really brought me back to the core of what this root work is all about. Is inside of the pain and suffering of abandoning myself for another, it took me to the greatest bottom of all. And instead of drinking or relapsing, which she also talks about in her record, I mean, I had 2 options. I could drink and die and lose everything, like she talks about in the relapse song, or I could move through the fire. I could become present with myself. I could process. I could be honest with my feelings, and I could move forward. And in that processing and in that being with myself and being in relationship to myself, I reclaimed myself. I came back into a deeper love and reverence for who I was. And that's what this work is. I know that the awareness piece is hard, and it's a lot of you are ready. Like, let's move on. Come on, let's get into it. How do I change these patterns? But it's not about changing patterns. What I hope to be teaching you is how to be with yourself in these very uncomfortable places in your life where you doubt yourself, you judge yourself, you want to rush yourself, and you double down on the hurt you're experiencing from other people in your life when you don't believe you're worthy or you're good enough, or you're shaming yourself or getting mad at yourself, or you're sitting there ruminating and trying to figure out what it is that you could possibly be different, or being mad at yourself for staying. You're doing more work than you know. It's not an easy journey coming into a place of really authentic love for yourself. It's not easy at all. And next season, we're going to get more into those embodied practices and embodied self-love. And so let's use this as a bridge. This will be our last episode of 2025. And let's use this as a bridge into that embodied self-love. So let's start with the first one, saying yes when we mean no. And I actually heard this again this morning because it made me realize I went back to the first song, and at the very end, you are listening to her on a phone call and you can only hear her side. And the first time I listened to the record, because I had no context, I didn't really know what that conversation was about. Going back to it this morning, I assumed this was a conversation where her husband was saying, hey, I want to be in an open relationship, or I need to have sex with other women, or whatever it was he was saying. And when I listened to it again this morning, I heard it differently. I heard her say, well, it doesn't make me feel great. Well, if that's what you need to do, then, well, how will it work? And then she's like, listening. And then it's like, no, I'm fine. It's just, I want you to be happy. No, I'm fine. I just want you to be happy. And when I heard her say that, I remembered all of the times I've said, I'm fine, when I absolutely was not fine, when I was furthest from fine, that the behavior, the request, the experience was so heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and devastating. And that I was like, well, I just want you to be happy. And at the time, was I consciously doing that? It's like a really good question as I'm sharing this out loud. Was I consciously saying I was fine? No, because I wasn't really living in a place of awareness. That's a learned response for many of us. Shoving down our own desires, saying yes when we mean no, going along with a plan that doesn't feel right, not because we want to be, but because in the moment it actually feels safer. It actually feels safer to say yes. And let's use this as an example, this record. Go ahead, sleep with other women, do what you need to do. Let's put all these boundaries around it to at least make it feel less scary for me, like you don't know the person, or you pay for it, or it's not emotional, or whatever it is. That actually feels less scary. Can you imagine when we get to a place where that feels less scary? To completely allow something that we know is going to devastate us and cause us harm, but it's the way to keep them near. It's scarier to lose them. There's an origin story here, right? We talk about this with the patterns. They don't come from nowhere. Where did we learn, if we learned, that staying agreeable keeps us safe? Staying agreeable keeps us connected. Minimizing our needs reduces conflict. Being flexible, understanding, or self-sacrificing helps us feel connected. It also can be a deep lack of self-trust. Is this normal? Is this just what everybody's doing now? Or the way that somebody speaks to us about something, we didn't really hear the real call. We don't hear the other voice on the other line. And that's a pretty short call. It's less than a minute in the song. But imagine all of the manipulation and grooming mental mind games that people who want to control or manipulate or get the things they want in relationship, a lot of this stuff we're being prepped for ahead of time in our relationships. A lot of times it doesn't just happen right away. And I'm not just talking about being asked to be in an open relationship or infidelity. This could really be anything in our relationship where we are really not okay with a certain behavior or being treated a certain way. And yet there is a part of us, our adaptive child, our inner child, that is really wanting us to stay safe. And so in that safeness, we say just what she says in this. I'm fine. I just want you to be happy, when we're not fine. So what is the cost when we do this? We just kind of talked about it already. The cost is we're saying yes to a completely different kind of pain. And inside of that is resentment. And not only resentment to the other person, but the resentment to ourselves. Why would I say yes? What's wrong with me? Why do they need this? Why are they doing this? We begin to feel exhausted with the rumination, the focus being on the other person, trying to understand why when we said yes to it. And when I name that and call that out, that is not from a place of shame, because we do not do this work from a place of shame. Well, you said yes, you should have said no. That was your fault. You know how many people are going to project that onto this woman? We see this all the time, especially with women. We just saw it in 50 Cent's Netflix documentary about Puff Daddy, the physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. And jurors, another female juror saying, well, she kept coming back. When we are in a place of awareness and understanding, and when I'm speaking to you about the cost, that is never coming from a place for you to be shamed. We're teaching your inner child that the pattern that once protected them is no longer actually keeping them safe. It just feels like it is, and there is a greater cost that is happening. And real self-love, real embodiment of this work is not asking you to be braver overnight, to say no, to hold a boundary. It's just asking you to be honest with yourself. It's not confrontation. It's just awareness. You're not fixing yourself. You're not forcing change. We're just being present with the real truth. Like the real truth is that for this woman, let's just even say like a character in the situation says, I'm fine when they're not. And that pattern of saying I'm fine when I'm not will continue and continue and continue until I have the courage to really look at myself and feel and say, wow, I wasn't fine. And I'm scared of my own truth. I am scared of my own truth. I don't feel capable of living in my own truth. I'm scared to live in my own truth. There is nothing to be ashamed of when we come to that place and that level of awareness. That is where the transformation happens. That is loving yourself. So next time you notice yourself agreeing, accommodating, saying it's fine, I just want you to pause, sacred pause, even if it's only internally, and just ask yourself, be with yourself. This is embodied love. What am I actually feeling right now in my body? Not my story. What does my nervous system feel about this request, about this behavior? What am I afraid of? What am I afraid would happen if I actually told my truth right now? Would I lose connection? Would I create conflict? Would I be misunderstood? And then what would it look like just to stay connected right here to myself, even if I don't change anything or take action? What does it look like to love myself in this moment, to watch myself say I'm okay when I'm not? This is a very important question. Healing begins when we stop overriding our inner experience. And over time, when we teach our nervous system, our inner child, that we're actually safe to not override, the awareness grows and the choice actually becomes possible. This is where choice becomes possible. Not because you push yourself or you talked yourself into it or you ruminated. This is a beautiful bridge into the rumination, because it's not about this obsessive thought process that got you there. You stopped disappearing. Maybe not for the other person, but you sure as hell stopped disappearing for yourself. What you didn't do was just go straight into I'm fine, get into bed, and as the next song goes, began to ruminate. Rumination is an attempt at safety. It is the mind doing what it knows how to do when something feels unresolved, uncertain, or threatening. When there's no clear ground, your heart's exposed, the mind steps in and says, let me try to fix this. And in trying to fix it, it uses tools like replaying conversations, imagining different outcomes. That's past and future, by the way, right? It's not present. The sacred pause coming into the body, that's present. Rumination needs to go into the past, and then it needs to go into the future. It needs to analyze tones, timing, words, meaning, scanning for danger, preparing for impact. Rumination is not about self-trust. It's about safety. And because so many of our learned patterns happen as children, we rely on adults to keep us safe. We are not our own safe protectors. We cannot be. But as adults, we can keep ourselves safe. There is a part of us that does know this is survivable. It might not emotionally feel survivable. The nervous system, it might not feel survivable. But the truth is that it is, that we are resilient and we can move through lost loves. We can get through betrayal. When we stop looking to others to keep us safe, when we stop looking for others to be the embodiment of the love that we can embody for ourselves, we can keep ourselves safe. Now, it's a huge jump when we're in fear and depression and disconnection from self or addiction. It is a huge jump to ask the brain to just go, hey, just know you're safe. You can take care of yourself. That's spiritual bypass. That's fake it till you make it. That's not embodied truth. You can't make yourself think or feel or know that this is survivable in that moment. You just can't. But the one thing that you can do, the one thing you have power over is your attention. It is how you are witnessing yourself and speaking to yourself. You have the power of awareness. Awareness is an embodied truth. And it is why I have spent over 15 episodes speaking to you over and over in different ways on different themes, inviting you into your own awareness and your own discernment. So next time you start ruminating, you can name it. You can say, from a place of honesty and compassion, I'm ruminating. I'm ruminating. I'm trying to keep myself safe. I'm trying to keep myself safe. And you can start asking better questions. You can ask questions. You can be in dialogue with yourself instead of with a pretend future or past or the person that just hung up on the phone. You can say, what am I trying to resolve right now? The fear, the real fear. What am I feeling in my body? My heart's beating. I feel sick to my stomach. Not the story, the fear. What am I afraid will happen if I stop thinking about this? Well, I can't stop thinking about this. I have to figure this out. The loss, the rejection, the regret, the being blindsided. I can't stop thinking about this. I have to think about it. Well, for the last 5 seconds you were asking these different questions, you actually were not thinking about it. You were thinking about yourself. You can stop the rumination process. It takes a lot of awareness and practice, but you can. This was the number one offender for me. This is why I drank and used, was rumination and disaster mind. But the more I learned that I was resilient enough to be with discomfort, the more I realized that I didn't have to like uncertainty and I didn't have to trust the outcome. I was teaching my nervous system that I can stay with myself when I didn't know, when I was uncertain. That instead of trying to offer myself a bunch of solutions, I could offer myself presence. And inside of that presence, the quieter my mind became. The more connected I became to my deepest truth, my intuition, my inner knowing, my power. That instead of giving the voice of ego and the voice of fear and the voice of rumination so much room in my head, I began giving the voice of the compassionate observer, of my higher self, of my spirit and my soul. I gave her room to speak to me as well. And that is a huge part of this process. And it's why I've integrated some of the meditations here. It's why I invite you into doing one-on-one work and going on a 12-week journey and really connecting to this stuff, not from the head. It's why I'm making the workbook too. Because right now you're listening with your mind, your heart's listening, you're being inspired. You know your higher self when you feel it. You know that inner wisdom when you're like, yes, that's my truth. I believe that. Yes, I know. It's inspiring you. But the deeper process, in my opinion, and in the work I'm sharing here, just my experience, strength, and hope, is that this is a spiritual experience. It is a returning to a part of you, to a voice, to a knowing and a truth that we think has quieted down, but really the voice of fear has just gotten so loud. Our adaptive children are screaming to keep us safe. And we need to do, I don't like to tell people what they need to do, but we can do the courageous thing and be with ourselves in a place of awareness. So I want to offer a book to you. If you really want to learn this practice of being with yourself, please read Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender by Dr. David Hawkins. And I'm not going to get into it too much here because we just don't have enough time, but this book changed my life. It actually taught me it helped me understand why I was ruminating, why I experienced fear, guilt, and shame. It helps you understand your emotions from a place of science. And then he teaches you how to be with your body and your emotions and your nervous system without the story. And it's the most powerful description, practice, and understanding in terms of how one really surrenders to their humanity and surrenders to the impermanence of everything. So I'm not going to go on, just give it a listen. Now let's get to the last thing that I wanted to share, which I think I didn't do this in the order I initially spoke to this. But the last thing that I want to talk about is really loving ourselves when we're upset with ourselves, when we're resentful, when we're angry, that guilt and shame that moves back towards us. And there were parts of Lily's record, now as I've gotten a little bit further away from it, I can't really particularly remember what song it was, but especially the relapse song where she's talking about drinking or using and how that would ruin her life. But in that moment, it just probably felt, at least what the mirror I saw and I remembered, was that feeling of really wanting to die, of just feeling so helpless, so frustrated, so sad, so grieved, so wounded, so victimized. And then at the same time, just I personally felt so much self-hate. So what stood out to me was not the pain of the relationship and that kind of dynamic that she was moving through, but it was how pain so easily turns inward. How quickly longing can become shame. How fast grief can become self-blame. How wanting love becomes something we judge ourselves for, wanting someone and then hating them so much at the same time. And it's something that I think so many of us have experienced and live inside of, or have lived inside of, because the most painful part about relationship or relational suffering isn't really about what the other person did or didn't do. I mean, yes, that stuff is painful, but it's how we treat ourselves once that feeling or knowing arrives in us. It is in that moment we have a power of choice and change and awareness. And for those of us who found and find ourselves in the same relationship patterns over and over again, suffering and in pain, there is something we can do about it. But it requires us to turn towards ourselves. And most of us have been taught to turn towards ourselves from a place of shame. So we go to blame. The number one tool in this work that I share with you is compassionate awareness, because learning to turn towards yourself with compassionate curiosity, it teaches your nervous system and your inner child that you're safe to reflect. You're safe to do the inner work that's going to be required for you to love yourself enough to leave this person that is causing you harm. You are worthy. You are beautiful, just as you are. This has nothing to do with you. It has to do with somebody else's wounding. It feels like it has everything to do with you, but it doesn't. When Lily talks about getting a facelift or doing all these things to her body, she's in her 40s. I understand that. If I only looked a certain way, if I only weighed a certain way, if I only act a certain way. You know how much time and energy and effort I spent on trying to change myself to make somebody who was unavailable to even see me for who I was love me? And it wasn't until I stopped beating myself up around that, but came into a place of radical self-acceptance, that is where I was. And really started to learn, to get curious, to ask more questions. What is the river beneath the river of rumination? What is the fear? How can I love you until you can love yourself? It's not a quick fix journey, my friends. It's really not. And guess what? The workbook I have coming for you, that's not quick fix either. It's for people who are ready, who would love some guidance, who would love to learn how to do it, but are ready to actually put pen to paper, to uncover, to recover and discover and reclaim a deep relationship to themselves. This is embodied love. Doesn't mean you're not going to get with somebody who's not unavailable. Doesn't mean you're not going to wall off. Doesn't mean that you're not going to project your stuff onto somebody else. That's not what it means. This is not you trying to elevate above your human experience. This is walking with awareness, radical self-honesty, courage to change, embodied, live, not survive. Stay with yourself. Stay with yourself so you don't stay in that relationship for 40 years. Stay with yourself. When you stay with yourself, you're constantly learning, you're constantly transforming, you're constantly changing, you're growing. That 14-year-old that was wounded, you're not living from that place anymore. You cannot possibly not transform when you stay with yourself. So stay with yourself when you say yes, when you mean no. When you're ruminating to feel safe, when that self-abuse, hate, judgment comes up, stay with yourself. Notice when you're trying to control pain by turning against yourself, trying to figure it out through rumination. They're all different strategies, but the longing is the same for all of them. It's to feel safe. It's to protect the heart. And yes, we should protect our hearts. Absolutely. But no one else is going to protect your heart as well as you can protect your heart. Staying with yourself, the choice not to abandon exactly who you are in the moment is the thread that weaves all of this together. That is embodied self-love. It's not just confidence or certainty or having the answers. It's real presence with pain again and again, and the resiliency that comes from that. And so as I close this episode and really this season, I really want to name what this arc today has been about. That while this season has been about awareness, not self-awareness as self-monitoring or self-improvement, but real awareness that you are in a relationship to yourself. That hopefully you have learned or been inspired to see your patterns without collapsing into shame, learning to notice your reactions versus your responses, learning to recognize the parts of you that learned how to survive and offer them compassion and curiosity instead of judgment. Hopefully you've heard that healing doesn't happen or you're not healed because you finally get it right, but it's actually a way of life. It's turning towards yourself when things are hard. You do not need to become someone else. You don't need to be calmer, stronger, more detached, more evolved. You just need to stay. I don't like telling people what they need to do. You know that I say that all the time. I invite you to stay. Stay with your truth. Stay with your body. Stay with your fear. Stay with your longing. Stay with your tenderness. It's hard to do this alone. Ask for help. Tell your friends you're doing this journey. Begin a therapeutic process that helps you heal the trauma that you went through as a child. Reach out to me. Let's do a 12-week one-on-one journey to reconnect deeply, to the soul, the spirit, the essence, the desire, the creativity, the longing, the truth, the knowing, the wisdom. Every time you choose presence instead of punishment, something repairs in you. And I know it's hard, and I know it's painful. And that's why I always say at the end that I am so proud of you, because this isn't easy. It's not a quick shot to the butt or a pill that you take or a little hypnosis moment or find freedom in 7 days. It's not. This is the hard work of recovery, soul recovery. And so I'm proud of you. And thank you for being here. And I'm excited to see you next season as we really deepen in even more to inspiring, to feeling, to knowing what it feels like to be in your embodied truth. And I really hope that all of these messages in medicine do just that, inspire you. Thank you for being here. Really, truly, thank you for being here. What started out as a podcast for a specific group of women I was helping with no intention of this reaching any further, what turned into me just sharing here from the heart for that smaller group of women has turned into me meeting, connecting with, and seeing how powerful this sharing has been. And it means a lot that you're here, that you share with your friends, and that you spend this time with me, because there's a lot of people that you could listen to. And so I appreciate you. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for being here. Please head to healwithalchemy.com to learn more about me and my offerings. Through one-on-one work, group cohorts, and worldwide retreats, I have so much to offer you. You can download my free meditation app, HealSpace. You can also find me on Insight Timer for free meditations, live events, and so much more. Thank you for your support, and please take some time to rate and review, and email me anytime to introduce yourself. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the other side.